Thank you. What a wonderful way to start the day, to see all of you again. And Chris, thank you for the kind introduction. And you know, I really, probably more than any time that we have come together, this is a moment of great opportunities, but also of great dangers for the work that we do. And I think there is nothing more important than what you are doing to get back to the very fundamental nature of why we do this work every day. And it is because home matters, right? It matters to each of us, no matter who we are, the richest, the poorest, anywhere in between, anywhere in this country. Home is so fundamental to the work that we do and to our lives. And I have to start just by saying thank you for your partnership. It's been a remarkable 4 years. I am looking forward to that continued partnership in the next 4 years, and well beyond that. So many of you I had the chance to work with even before coming to HUD, and I know that we will all, in our different ways, continue to support and tell the story of why home matters. More than 190 NeighborWorks organizations all across the country coming together, lifting your voice on all of the areas that we've been working together these last 4 years. Thank you for that remarkable voice. Thank you for the work that you do every day. And I want to spend some time, obviously, talking about why home matters from a professional point of view. Obviously, as the housing secretary for the country, I need to talk about how home matters and what we are doing to ensure that every American can access a decent, safe place to live. But I wanted to start maybe on a little more personal basis to talk about how I got started doing this and how I came to understand why home matters and why I wanted to dedicate my life in the work that I wanted to do because home matters. So those of you who know me know that I'm a New Yorker, and I grew up in New York City at a time when not only were people all over the country and even all over the world questioning whether American cities would survive. This was the era of the burning Bronx, the era of Ford to New York City drop dead, if you remember that New York Post headline. But it was also the moment when homelessness was exploding across New York and across the country. And I will never forget walking to school down Park Avenue, one of the most iconic streets in New York City, certainly maybe in the country and the world, and walking past homeless folks, that first thing I would see in the morning, before even getting to school and starting my day. And I remember thinking to myself, how is it that in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country on earth, we have folks sleeping on the streets? And for me, that was really where this questioning of why is home so important? You know, there's nothing like meeting someone, talking to someone who has lost their home to understand why home matters. And so I began in college volunteering at a homeless shelter. My first job after college, I came to DC and I was an intern at the National Coalition for the Homeless. And that was really how I got started on the road to a career and a life dedicated to why housing matters and why home matters. I know each of you has your own story about why it matters to you. But for all of us, it begins with that fundamental understanding of why home matters. Now, from the personal to the most broad and deep scale, the times that we live in have also taught us why home matters to everyone across the country, because we understand today, more than at any time, I think, in the country's history, that when you get home wrong, when you see a crisis in housing like we saw, you not only risk homelessness for individual families, you risk our entire world financial system. And that was what we were facing. This president was facing, that's what I was facing, all of us in the administration, and all of us that work in communities around the country. We're facing a crisis that was brought on because we didn't pay attention to making sure that home mattered. Not just that a loan mattered or that we could make profits, but that we were actually creating opportunities for families to become homeowners and to stay in those homes. But I'm also happy to say that what we are seeing today is the reverse, that when we get housing right, when we help families get into the right homeownership opportunities, we help families make the right choices, and we help to rebuild our economic system around home mattering in the right ways, we actually are seeing a recovery that is driven by housing. The president in the State of the Union address just a few weeks ago talked about how central housing is and home is to our economic recovery. All of the most important indicators you would look at as an economist are moving in the right direction. We have home prices, home sales, home affordability, all at the strongest levels they've been since the crisis began. And even just looking at our jobs report last week, 250,000, almost 250,000 new private sector jobs created just in February. And what was leading the way? Construction. 48,000 new construction jobs in February alone. So home is important to each of us. Home is important, a critical piece of our economy and our economic recovery today. So there's another area that home matters. Now, in the State of the Union address, the president also talked about something else. You heard him mention this effort to create ladders of opportunity for all Americans. One of the things he said is that a fundamental premise of the compact that this nation, that America has made with its citizens, is that if you work hard, you play by the rules, that you will have a chance to get ahead and that your kids will have a chance to have a better life than you had. Doesn't matter where you come from, the color of your skin, rich or poor, that basic tenet of the American dream, that basic compact that we make, is about being able to access opportunity if you do your part. Now, too often we have seen that compact eroded. And in particular, we have seen the critical role that home plays in that compact eroded. We all know that when you choose a home, you choose much more than a home. You choose where your kids go to school. You choose access to transportation and jobs. You choose public safety. Do you feel secure in your everyday life? Can your kids get on their bicycle or walk around your neighborhood? All of those basic things about our lives come from that fundamental choice we make of our home, where we live. And yet, we have too many communities in this country where the life chances of a child, what their education will be, what their lifespan will be, those fundamental opportunities are being cut off because of the zip code that these kids grow up in, because they are not getting in their neighborhood, near their home, those basic pieces, those building blocks of the American dream that we have taken as a fundamental part of the American dream and the American promise. When you think about that this is not just a small number of children, that 20% of American kids are growing up in poverty today, we lose as a country $500 billion a year, $500 billion in economic activity, productivity, that is lost because we are not investing in those kids. And then when you go back to the fact that so much of that lack of opportunity comes from where those kids live, the home that they grow up in, and where that home is located in terms of their neighborhoods, you realize that we have to do more, particularly in those neighborhoods that are most challenged. And so the president pledged that we will begin this year an effort called Promise Zones that will focus on 20 of the most challenged communities around this nation. We will begin with home. We will take our Choice Neighborhoods effort that fundamentally remakes the most troubled public and assisted housing. We will bring our neighborhood stabilization efforts that focus on vacant and abandoned privately owned housing. But we will also bring our Promise Neighborhoods efforts around rebuilding schools on the model of Harlem Children's Zone, Jeffrey Canada's great work in New York City. We will bring criminal justice efforts from the Department of Justice. We will bring community health centers from HHS. We will bring all of those pieces together to focus them on rebuilding these communities, starting with home. That is an effort that we will be looking to all of you to be fundamental partners in as well. Now, I've talked a little bit about the importance of home for me, for our economy, and particularly for the kids that grow up with the least opportunity in our nation. But you all know and are the best advocates for how each of HUD's programs plays a fundamental role in creating home. From the very beginning of the cycle of housing and home ownership, from the very moment a family decides to buy or rent their first home, you are there because housing counselors play an absolutely critical role in helping families make the right, the smart, the informed choice about where they're going to live. Whether it's buying or renting, improving their financial literacy, protecting families' rights against discrimination, or even preventing homelessness, those are all choices you help them make through counseling. Your study on pre-purchase counseling showed that borrowers who receive counseling were 33% less likely to become 90 days delinquent despite the financial crisis, and even controlling for any selection bias. A recent HUD study showed that 7 in 10 at-risk homeowners who worked with a housing counselor got the help they needed to keep their home. Of course, that's why we're working with all of you to increase access to counseling. It's why we've launched a new Office of Housing Counseling, elevating its visibility and importance, and working to integrate housing counseling into all of HUD's programs. It's also why we stole one of your own, Sarah Jarek, who's doing just a fantastic, fantastic job. But we're also looking for your continued support for so many of our other efforts that strengthen the concept of home by building stronger structures, but also stronger communities. The HOME program is the largest federal block grant dedicated to affordable housing production, and it is essential to strengthening the concept of home by ensuring that affordable homes are accessible to more people. Think about this. In just over 20 years, 650 participating jurisdictions around the country have created over 1 million affordable units and provided rental assistance to an additional 250,000 families. At the same time, one of our most flexible tools, community development block grants, create jobs, bring businesses to your cities, forge innovative partnerships around services, and help you rebuild your economies. CDBG is a centerpiece of our community development efforts, and we've seen the difference that CDBG funds can make and how the dollars that they leverage build the economic infrastructure that a community needs to thrive. It's also a vital tool for rebuilding after a disaster. Programs like CDBG and Home are necessary because they allow us to focus not just on what our communities look like today, right now, or even how they can be better in the next year or 5 years, but what are our fundamental goals, what are our vision for our homes and our communities for the next decades to come. And in that way, we are all working together with HUD's programs, planning our communities, helping generations define why home matters to them. But all of these efforts, counseling, our block grants, all of HUD's programs, at this moment, as I stand here today, are threatened by sequestration. While we are all working so hard to show why home matters, to defend the investments that we make in our homes, we are seeing about 125,000 individuals and families who will lose their Section 8 vouchers through sequestration. Remember that more than half of the people who use Section 8 are elderly or disabled. Another 100,000 homeless and formerly homeless people, the majority of them families with children, disabled adults, or veterans, will be removed from their current housing or emergency shelter programs. If that weren't bad enough, sequestration will also likely cause substantial damage to our nation's housing market at the precise time it's helping to lead our economy back from the brink. Why is that? Because sequestration will jeopardize FHA's ability to process loans when FHA accounts for about 25% of all new single-family and multifamily loans in the country. Cuts to housing counseling grants will result in 75,000 fewer households receiving vital foreclosure prevention, pre-purchase rental, or other counseling. This means fewer families making the right, responsible, informed housing choices and greater risk to our housing recovery. Now, after starting where I started and talking about the just magnificent work that you all are doing and that we're doing in partnership, you cannot imagine, maybe you can imagine, how frustrating it is to me, and I'm sure it is deeply frustrating to all of you, to watch these cuts go into effect. Rolling back hard-won gains in troubled neighborhoods, threatening the ability of a family or a veteran or a disabled person to stay in their home is unconscionable. We have to reverse sequestration. We have to put these misguided cuts behind us precisely because home is so important. You all, from all across the country, you can tell these stories. You can show our Congress why home matters and the difference that reversing sequestration will make. Let me close on one last example of what sequestration does. We have now lost, with sequestration, $2.5 billion from our effort to help the region that was hit by Superstorm Sandy to recover. Just the cuts to the CDBG program are about $800 million. And our expectation is that will mean more than 10,000 families who will not be able to rebuild their homes. Now, I began with a story about my own discovery of why home matters through seeing homeless folks on my way walking to school. The most difficult moments I've experienced as HUD secretary, and the ones that have most reminded me why home matters, are when I've traveled to places that have been hit by natural disasters. There is nothing like meeting two sisters walking through the wreckage of their mother's neighborhood after being hit by a tornado outside of Birmingham, Alabama, looking to gather the scraps of their lives in the debris. Literally not able to find a photograph of their childhoods, a photograph of their parents. A similar look in the faces of families in the Rockaways on the shore in New Jersey after a hurricane and flooding stole their home. It is when you see those moments of a family that has lost their home that you realize more than ever before why home matters. It is when you see in the eyes of that family that everything they need to do to get their kids back in school, to get back to work, to start reconstructing their lives begins with having a place to lay their heads, to bring together all of their worldly possessions and memories. It is when you experience that, and when you know that sequestration will stop that progress of rebuilding for more than 10,000 families, that you know why home matters. At that moment, home is everything.